So do you remember our Alfa Romeo that wouldn't start? Well, it starts now, just as well really, because 2 weeks' time, I've got to drive it on the Mille Miglia. 1,000 miles around Italy. How about that? So that's something I never thought would happen. But a friend of mine said to me last year, I reckon you can get us into the Mille Miglia. I said, really? He said, yeah. I've been told if I get the right car, we're in. And yeah, true to his word, he got the right car and we're in. So yeah, it's a prep work. Now I've had a bit of a shakedown, I've used it a little bit. First problem we found was back axle. Had a lot of oil coming out the back axle. And this has been through a few hands of a few people, prep work and so on. Some of it good, some of it not so good. Well, the back axle leak, looks like they've struggled with that. Put 2 washers on the oil filler bung to try and cure it. Well, it ain't going to work, is it? And particularly as it wasn't coming out the filler bung. It actually had a crack in it. So on these, they have a setup with an A-frame. So it's sort of a 4-link type of thing. Well, it's not, it's 3-link really. So you've got lower arms, and then you have a coilovers, or effectively a coilover setup for the springs, which is a spring over a shock absorber. Then you have an A-frame that goes off of the body onto the top of the diff housing, a little bit like early Lotus Cortinas, and a little bit like early Lotus Cortinas, it cracks and tends to leak. And it had, the welder cracked, so you'll see what I did. Right, so the Alfa's got a bit of trouble. We've got an oil leak from the back axle there. So I've cleaned it all up. I've been on another road test, but you can see it's produced some more. But now we can see what's happening. So actually, it's leaking from where this weld's cracked. See, so you've got this top arm, fits on top of the banjo there, and it's coming from there. See it quite clear, can't you? Along that weld there, it's all cracked. Like that. So that's what we got. So it's a very sophisticated axle arrangement for a 1955 car, very sporting, but it's allowed to have a bit of stress after all them years, isn't it? And it's done the Mille 19 times, so that's 19,000 miles of hard use around Italy without the rest of its life and all the other rallies it's done. I got the axle out, got the diff out, half shafts out, diff out, took the axle banjo casing out, cleaned it up, welded it up, did some quite heavy welds on it, try and sort of emulate the 50s welding that was on it already, and then popped it all back in, and that's cured that. So to get the axle out, I'm going to use a slide hammer. So here we are, it's bolted on. Now you see we've got these dear little brass nuts, haven't we? So I've reversed them, and I'm using these heavy washers behind it, that's so I don't bruise anything up. Now there's 4 bolts on the back of here, on the back of this back plate and onto the axle. 4 nuts with split pins, they're already off. So it's time to do it. You know, what we do is we put that on there, and then what we need to do is use our slide hammer like this to get it out. There you go. See it moved? Now the back plate's going to drop down, so I'm going to tie that up with a cable tie or something first. Quite heavy actually, this. Oh, there we are, there's our half shaft. Our bearing, and the sort of bolt on collar. And it's quite big splines, look at these size of these splines. There we go. As I say, cable tie on the back plate stops it dropping down. Next part of the job is going to be getting the diff out of itself. So, already got the prop off, and I've wedged a piece of wood up in there. Just keep it out of the way. And it's got this slightly, we're unfamiliar with this type of universal joint. It sort of bolts on, locates here and here, and then we sort of bolt on through here. So these just caps come off, drop off like like a conventional one does, but it's got the whole carrier on it, rather than pushing these into a carrier, and that bolts on, that flange just bolts on. So it's slightly unconventional, but I don't think it's, I don't think it's going to give us any real trouble. It looks strong, looks well machined, but I suppose they changed these because it's a lot of machining, a lot of effort to make it that way. But anyway, that's that bit. You can see I've marked things up just so I know how everything goes. See, so I've marked that there, and then on there, so we know what we're doing. So it's these bolts now. Get this lot out, and then we can see what's going on with this crack, which is the whole reason we're doing it, isn't it? To see what's going on there. And the reason I'm not taking them all the way off is that otherwise the socket, they get stuck in the socket and it's awkward to get them out again. So we can get all these off now. They're all finger tight. He says. That one isn't. Anyway, get this lot off and we'll see. We've got these sort of wavy washers on there. Now what you'll notice is it's got these bolts going in here. Now I'm assuming these are to do with the diff carrier itself. But that's what I think. So we'll take all these nuts off. We'll leave that one on the top so that it won't fall out. And then we'll get the transmission jack underneath it. And then we'll take it out and see what we got. With that one in, it ain't going to fall out, is it? Let's see if we can break the seal on it. There you go, it's quite easy, isn't it? That's nice and easy. Right, so I'm going to want the transmission jack to drop it onto. Actually saying that, it's probably not that heavy, I'll just lift it by hand. Okay, here we are. Brace yourselves. Don't want to drop it. Right, there you go. That's all right now. So apparently this axle design was Busso, who did the V6, the Alfa Romeo V6, the wonderful engine that everyone raves about. Yeah, it was his work apparently. As I say, similar to a Lotus Cortina. It's his fault, isn't it, why it's cracked? It's not his fault. He's driving it around Italy so long, and it's so many times over all them cobbles. Right, so we can see here where the crack is, can't we? Have a good look in there, you'll see it. And that's what we're up against. So the question is, can I do it in situ? Or should we be taking the axle out entirely? Don't know. Yeah, look, there it is. Yeah, job to know. And you can see the heat sort of, has discoloured it. And here we are. We can see where that's brazed in for the filler bung. Remember the filler bung they put 2 washers on? It's obviously not going to work, is it? And here we can look at the construction of the axle. You can see where they weld the back on, and then you see these seams where the whole top and the bottom goes together. They must be pressings of some sort. And then the back goes on, the little tin on the back, like a little wok almost. They press that, that we pressed out, and then they weld it on. But there we are. For its day, it's very sophisticated design. Most things are on cart springs. And I think that's what the argument was between Lampredi and Busso and I can't remember another engineer. They were all squabbling about it apparently, about how to do the back end on these. Because you've got to remember, this was a big challenge. This car, first monocoque car Alfa Romeo produced, first mass-produced car. Pre this they were building, very exotic cars. And I guess if you sort of think about it, it's a bit like Ferrari today saying, okay, well, we're going to make a little 4-door saloon and we're going to compete with the BMW 5 Series. That's what we're going to do. Because it was, you know, the other stuff was very exotic from Alfa Romeo pre this, and it wasn't really saloon car stuff. There you go, look, it's in the baking tin. The roast beast, the pig's head. It does, that's what they call them, isn't it, pig's head. All very coarse, really, isn't it? But there you go. So that's it, yeah, that's it. The roasted beast. You can see where those through bolts go through, so they go right through the casing. You know, we're looking at them on the outside of it before. And that's what they do. The through bolts go all the way through, and then you've got the nuts on the end of it. So I suppose it's saved cutting threads into the casing and so on. There we are. So I've decided to get the axle out. It's too difficult to work on it in situ. And I think we should reinforce that whilst we're about it. That mount. Okay, that's going to be better, isn't it? Right, this oil seal's not looking good, is it? See, it's really tough. You see? So I have to get that out, measure it up and order some of them up. Now what that does, that runs on here, doesn't it? On this surface here. So we've got a wheel bearing there. Now that must be a sealed bearing, I'm assuming. And then you've got oil seal here to keep the axle oil in. It looks like we've got a sort of a potential drain off here for axle oil. If it does get past there, it allows it to drain off there, I'm thinking. Because that seems to correspond with this, doesn't it? And I'm not entirely sure about that. I'll have to have a proper look at that. So it doesn't seem to break through. Yeah, I don't know. That must be what it's for. Anyway, we'll have a look, won't we? Well, this will be another slide hammer job, won't it? This was this bearing puller type thing. Let's see if this will go in there. No, that's all right. It's out. Okay, we'll measure that up and order one. Now this is where the crack is. It's where alongside the edge of this weld here. So we've got to sort that out. It goes round here. It seems to go down this way. Now I've taken this tang off for the brake pipe retainer, so I can get into here if we need to weld this, because I think it does come down in this direction. So I want to be able to get into there, and then we can weld that brake pipe tang on. That's why that bit of pen's there, so I can see where that goes. So it's in here, isn't it? Sort of in there, you can just see the shadow of it. It wasn't a big crack, but it's enough to cause the problem, isn't it? That oil leaking. Wasn't it? See what I didn't want to try and do this in situ. It's been a lot more bother, wouldn't it? We're getting there. Quite, you know, really get this to fight in a bit, label it on here a bit, thick. You know, some of it needs, but I want to build it up a bit. Don't want any more bother, do we? Right, I've gone in heavy here because I want it to have the sort of feel of an old 50s bit of welding, stick welding. You know, proper beef it up, which is all right, I think that'll work. And then this thing's a new brake pipe tang, fitted that. And you know what I was talking about before, how it's made. So this is one pressing here and then welded through here. And then these are forgings, possibly castings, but I suspect they're forgings. And then you can see the weld on these, see the heavy weld that I'm on about? And then this bit is a separate bit, you know, welded on around the perimeter. So that's how they're sort of fabricated up. And then obviously these are put on, and those, and more brake tangs, a breather, and so on. And obviously our mount here, which was the problem, wasn't it? And now I've done a bit on the back here and beefed up the back of the weld, as you know, back of the mount as well, with a bit more welding. Probably unnecessary, but there we are. But that's it. That'll sort it out, won't it? That should cure the leaks. Now I've got to put it back in. I've just had some brake spray in there, and it doesn't seem to be coming through anywhere, so I reckon we're all right. I reckon that's sorted it out. But we've got other things we've got to deal with, but more on them another time maybe. But there we are. 1,000 miles around Italy over 3 days. In fact, it's not. They've lengthened it to 5 days. And I said, oh, that's good, because that'll be less driving. And he said, no. They've upped their mileage. You've got to do more than 1,000 miles now. But anyway, what an adventure. So I'm quite looking forward to that, although a little daunted. Now, I'm not daunted by the driving or trying to keep the car going. I'm daunted by reading the map. I can get lost in the workshop, let alone around Italy, which is pretty much what I said. He said, will you drive the Mille Miglia? I said, yep. I thought, it's good, my cogs are turning, and I'm thinking, what do you say? You could say yes or no to something like this, can't you? And I thought for a split second, yes. And then, yes, I can surely get us lost in Italy. Anyway, I'll get lost in the workshop now.